Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 5:19. I'll do a roll call of the committee. Mayor Brown,
Present.
Councilmember McLean.
Here.
Councilmember King. Finance Director Basabika.
Here.
And City Manager, I am here. So with 4 present, there is a quorum. All right, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. All right, I'll entertain our motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
All in favor of the agenda as submitted, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. Now is the time for public comments. Each member of the public will have 30 minutes to address the committee. I said 3. 3 minutes.
Oh,
There's no one attending in person. No one online. So we will close public comment. Now on to the first item tonight is the election of a committee officer. As I was stating, I think it is important that the officer be a council member and not a staff member. So I will, if there's any discussion or if there's any nominations, please make them known.
hey, hello.
Are you on the committee? I thought it was just Michelle.
Michelle.
Yeah. But I'm interested, so I thought it'd come.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute.
No, I figured I wasn't officially because
Sure.
Patrick's already
No,
there.
no,
but-
it confused me a little bit.
Yeah,
Wait,
I
did we mess this up?
Yeah. Okay, so now I'll entertain motions to. Well, technically, yeah.
Table. I'll volunteer myself as tribute to chair the meeting.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Mayor Brown chairing this committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, Mayor Brown is elected the officer, or I'm sorry, the chair. Not used to chairing.
I know, right?
Okay, then I will turn it over to the mayor.
All right. So next on the agenda, we have the approval of the committee 2024 schedule. On the back here, so the dates are May 9th, May 30th, August 8th, October 10th, and December 12th at 7:15 p.m. I know I can't enter that. on the
So
table, can I?
if I can, I'll read it. into the
Okay.
record. Actually, first of all, I'll just kind of discuss how this was determined. Councilmember McLean and I had discussed the first 3 meetings and then doing a bi-monthly meeting following that. This will get us to the end of the year. So I make a motion to approve the 2024 calendar of meetings with May 9th at 7:15, May 30th at 7:15, August 8th at 7:15, and October 10th at 7:15, and December 12th at 7:15. That's a move.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the dates? I will just say thank you all for your flexibility of bumping them to 7:15, just to give me a little wiggle room to get here. And I will do my best to be very timely. I have to move my client schedule around a bit, but I have the dates, so I can do that ahead of time. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, seeing none, I guess we'll call all in favor? Roll?
Yes, all in favor?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, perfect. So our calendar has been approved. And next we have the discussion regarding city revenues. I suppose I'm handing that over to Finance Director Basabika.
Yes, good afternoon. I have some document for us?
So much.
You already have, Andrew?
Yep, I'm good.
My chair's right? Or this one.
It's not as bad.
Yeah. I move a lot. No, it's okay. I'm gonna be still.
All right, good afternoon. So on this Finance Committee report, we'll find the revenue estimates and history for all our funds, our history for fiscal year 21, 22, 23, and projections for our fiscal year 24 and 25. These projections are not yet final because that will still be approved in our future budget meetings. And then you'll see their basic explanation of all our dedicated non-general funds and their sources. The uses will be in our next meeting. Also look into the basic analysis of our general fund, its sources, revenue trends, risk factors, and the different fund balance categories of our general fund balance. And then we'll look into our debt service, debt capacity, summary of existing debt and debt repayment schedules, legal limits of city capacity to enter into debt, and then we'll look into the current remaining capacity with vote of the people, without vote of the people, and then our bond rating and bond rating history.
And Reagan, are these all the things we're gonna cover today or just in general?
So these are the things we'll cover today,
Okay, perfect.
but it should be quick.
No, you're good. That's fine.
So this will be our estimates. So our estimates are based on the following assumptions. So when we talk of assumptions, these were based on historical data, averages, and the current rate of inflation. So these assumptions were prepared in good faith, and we should expect some reasonable changes and some fluctuations when doing these assumptions. So we will be estimating or projecting for our original budget 24-25 and then original 25-26. So first revenue category is our property taxes, which is the main source of the city's revenue. And what we do here is we assume 5% increase for the next 2 years because in the previous year, we did have a 7.9 rate of inflation. But as per proposal A, we can only go up to 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. And for this year and the following year, we are expecting probably a higher inflation rate. So we're just going to stick to the 5%. Next is our state revenue sharing. So these are the sales tax collection by the state, and then eventually they distribute to the different municipalities based on our population. And these assumptions, they already provide. So we just copy whatever they have in their website. That's what we use in our projections for the budget. Next is our PA 289 fire protection funding. So this is for our services for the services that we provide for state properties, specifically for our city, Eastern Michigan. So we do get around 900,000 per year for this service. But what we do in the budget is we only put in 50% of the funding because before 2020, we've been receiving less than 100%. We only receive 50% of the total funding. And when we talk to the state, if they could give us the estimate for this fund or for this funding, they cannot guarantee that they're always going to give us the 100%. So we keep it conservative and just keep it at 50%.
But this is actually, one of my questions is around PA 289. We've always, I remember this conversation every single year.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you know this, but I'm just putting it out there. Like, why is it that they don't know how much of the funding they'll be able to release by, each year?
I think it's because this is subject to appropriation and approval on a yearly basis. So
Yeah. It's an unfunded mandate, so the state legislature has to approve.
Money in there every year. Got it. Okay, thank you.
And then this is the marijuana state revenue sharing. This is a new source for the city. I think this is now the third year for the city receiving this. And the first year we did receive 400,000. Following year, it's 700. Oh, this current year, we did receive 760,000. But again, we don't know the trend of this revenue. So we're just keeping it at 500,000 for the next 2 years. And then our departmental revenues, these are all based on historical data of our departments. And they also try to project if there are any additional projects, let's say for building permits, our department heads would put in some additional funding if they think that there's going to be additional going to come in. Then, I'm sorry. Investment income for all our funds, investment income for all funds, we put it at 720,000. And then following year, we're putting it as 530,000 because we are expecting to use some of our fund balances for the budget. And when we use our fund balance, our surplus funds decreases and then eventually giving us less investment income. And then transfer from public safety fund. This is from our fund 205 to general fund. We do put in 220,000 from that fund to the general fund. And then our Act 61 street funding or our gas and weight tax. This is again coming from the state. This funds our Fund 202 Major Street and Fund 203 our local street. And these are again based on state assumptions. I did put in some expenditures here, but I think this will be discussed in the following meetings. And then some important budget reminders. Our Public Safety Fund 205 has a revenue of around 430,000. And this is only available until fiscal year 2026. This is coming from the county. And probably they'll bring it to a vote in 26. So it depends if this is going to be renewed or not. And then our general fund will have to subsidize our workers' comp fund in fiscal year 26-27 because the fund balance for this will be used up because currently now we're paying the premiums for fiscal year 24-26 through the fund balance of this.
Idea how much?
I think it's around 250,000 per year.
So that will go up over time.
Yes, because these are health workers' comp insurance. Depending on if we got injuries, it will go up. If we are able to keep injury workplace related are minimum, then this will also decrease.
It is, it's based off a metric. I don't have it in front of me, but it's essentially like a risk analysis that it goes up if you're above like 1.5, that's bad. But we have been doing better with our workers' comp. So it fluctuates, but this will also include beyond just the workers' comp if there's additional lawsuits and things like that. So that will fluctuate there.
Behooves us to pay attention,
Yes.
close attention to
Mhm.
worker safety.
Yeah, exactly. That's why having adequate training for our staff is essential. But
We also had
also,
some inspections throughout the buildings. right?
correct, yeah, each year I mean, there's a lot of different inspections, but they will do an assessment of all of our facilities, and that happens not each year. I think it's 5 to 10 years they'll do that. And also then when our risk person for insurance comes, they will tour a facility each time. They did fire last year, they did police this year, and they'll give just some tips on how to be, how it had to have a safer facility. And also point us to the direction of additional training. Because if we train our employees correctly, then it takes some liability off the city.
On our next table, You will see the history of our revenue accounts. So if you, as you see here, there's so many accounts, but I did highlight some of the major revenue sources for the different funds. And maybe we could go through a little bit some of this. So if you look on the first three lines there, you see the current property taxes. These are coming from the tax millage of the city, which is subdivided into three. So we have our operating. We also have our fire and police pension millage, and then fire and police OPEB. So these are all through our property taxes.
What is the third of those?
It's our fire and police OPEB, our other post-employment benefits. So this pays for the healthcare of our retirees, fire and police pension retirees. Then that we have the SSR sales and use tax. This is the state revenue sharing. And then interest earnings. You could see here there was a big bump from our fiscal year 2022 to 23. So we did have some surplus funds, and we did get better yields now with our surplus funds. So that increased to almost more than $500,000. Next, we have the transfer in, which is from the public safety fund. That's the 220,000 I was talking about a while ago on the estimates. We have the fire protection. Then certificate of compliance. This is coming from the building department for, can you give details?
Certificate of compliance is essentially the building is safe to use for your business. So you receive your certification following building inspections, mechanical inspections, electrical inspections, things like that.
Then on line 82, you'll see miscellaneous revenue there. We just didn't change the title of that one, but that was for the Water Street cleanup project. So these are one-time funds that's gonna come in. You see there on fiscal year 24-25, that's a 4.4 million money that will be receiving, and that will be used to clean up Water Street. Then we have there line 83, the recreational state revenue sharing, 760,000 and 500 for the next 2 years. On 202, we have there our gas and weight tax, which funds the majority of our major street. Same with our 203 gas and weight tax. Our fund 205 is funded by the Washington County millage for mental health. So that's good from till fiscal year 26. Our 226 fund there, line 118, is funded through current property taxes. So we have also a dedicated millage that we collect for our garbage and rubbish. And line 155, our fund 304. So this is like a debt fund. We are able to collect from property taxes to pay our debt for our Water Street. And then 413, this is for the DDA. And 486, these are all debt millages coming from contribution from YCOA. So there are debts that the city has to pay, but we collect it from YCOA from their water and sewer collections. So it's more like a pass-through. And then 588, our public transport fund. So we also have a dedicated millage for public transport. And what we do is we collect this and then eventually we transfer to AATA.
And AAATA has had 2 millages. I believe the first was in 2014. Well, they've had more than that, but the in recent history was one in 2014, and then one was approved. I believe I want to say 22.
Question about the projections. So the line that has projections for 2023 and 24, were those the original budget projections or have those been updated?
Yes, these are already updated. Yes, yep. Yep. So we are now working on this, so I know that we've updated some of these revenues already. Okay. We have here on the next page, the basic explanation for all other revenue. So you see there franchise and permit fees. These are for right-of-way permits. Then gas and weight tax. These are our Act 51 state funding. State trunk line maintenance. This is our trunk line reimbursement for Bonnie. State trunk line maintenance. So for our main roads. And then we also get a county reimbursement for our county road projects. Then franchise and permit fees. These are again right-of-way permits for 203. You also get some salt reimbursement from EMU for salt that we used or that we purchased for them. And then Washoe County, that's the county health millage. County current property tax, just property taxes, and then reimbursement for the day service. 2264, transfer from general fund. So that transfer from general fund. So currently our 226 fund, our garbage and rubbish fund, is not able to support itself through the current taxes. What we do is it's still being subsidized by the general fund. So we make a transfer from general fund to 226.
What's the imbalance roughly?
Yeah, I think I have it here. Let me check. Yeah, close to 300.
Almost 300. Oh, over 300.
And how much does the millage bring in? So about 25%.
Yeah, 360,000. Then you wanted the millage.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
How much money?
Close to 1 million.
So it is significant that what we're putting in there to cover that. I believe, and Reagan, correct me if I'm wrong, but we used to use the motor pool to subsidize the garbage fund. And then that was changed, the general fund, correct?
What we do is since our garbage fund uses some motor pool, uses the equipment,
Mhm.
we charge
Gotcha.
the or probably we don't charge as much. Oh yeah, we don't charge enough. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
I think one of the discussions that we had before too is our garbage millage has now been subject to millage reduction fractions. So there was a maximum millage that was voted upon, and it was subject to decreases through time because the city has been growing in our taxable value. So that also decreases the millage. So if we wanted to increase that millage back to its original amount, then we have to go to our residents again, tell them, hey, we're not charging enough now on our millage rates. So we wanted to fund this, avoid, if we wanted the general fund from not subsidizing this one. That's one of our options if we wanted to. And the rollback, that is correct. Yep. Okay, and then we just have if you see it on the accounts transfer from general fund, these are just subsidies that the general fund does for the different fund. So you see there's a transfer to 304. So the 304 is our Water Street debt. And what we did was we subdivided that debt into two parts. So one part is being paid by a tax millage, and then the rest is being paid by the general fund.
Bond and Bond B.
Yes, we will see that on the details of that debt on the following.
And
page.
we received those bonds in 2016, so I believe they're titled 2016A and 2016B.
Then we have internal charge for motor pool usage. So if you see equipment rental, these are now the charges that we do to the different funds to fund our motor pool. And then we also have pension investment earnings. So we currently we currently are the fiduciary of the fire and police pension. And what we do is we also try to budget for that fund and project the possible investment earnings from the current pool of funds that we have in there. Then the others are just from the fire and police tax millage. Did you have any questions on this table?
We went over the effect, the general fund subsidizing the garbage collection. Are there any other areas in here that stand out to you
Mhm.
where they're perhaps inadequate to cover what they were meant to cover, or over time they've?
So one is the workers' compensation, which is gonna be 2 years from now, that will need to be subsidized by the general fund. Let me see at all the transfers that we currently do.
While he's looking that up, just to, as a reminder to council that the city was awarded $5 million for its fire and police pension. So that was, when did we receive that money yet?
We did this fiscal year.
Yep.
So that helped fund our pension. And police pension, we were around 52% funded before on our fire and police pension. And the state did provide grants to municipalities that were 60% and underfunded. So that they gave us around 5 million to put us back to one-time funding.
So what does that get us up to?
No, close now to 60%.
Are we statutorily required to be at a certain percentage?
No, but then the statute is we are required to contribute whatever the actuary determines for the year. We need to, the city needs to contribute that amount. So that is funded also by our millage. So we have a fire and police pension millage. So what is when the actuary determines the contribution for the year, we now put that in as a millage. So currently, the transfers that we make are through the garbage fund, the debt service for for our water street. We subsidize our capital improvement is being paid for by our general fund. And then we also transfer to our OPEB. So our OPEB, the retiree healthcare plan. So part of it, the fire and police pension part is being funded by a millage, but then the rest for our general retirees, this is paid for by the general fund. Yes. That's around, in the past, around 350,000, but that's been decreasing because we've already stopped that benefit to our employees. So we no longer provide that benefit.
And the debt service for Water Street that we transfer in, is that, does the millage cover the debt service fully?
Yes. So we do, so there's two parts, right? So the first part is fully covered, but then the other part is not. So that's just general fund. Is that your question?
Okay.
We'll be able to see it better later on the debt slide. So I could show.
Yeah, yeah, 2016A is covered, so that was the millage that was approved to cover one of the bonds.
I see, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? So we now go to the general fund source. So we have a pie chart here that will show the main source of the city's revenue. So if you see here, our tax, 49% of our operations are covered by taxes. And then intergovernmental, 19%. The grants here is quite an anomaly because it says 20%, but that's because of that Water Street funding that we received, which is around 4 million. And then charges for services, 5%, licenses and permits, 3%, and then investment earnings, 2%. And we have transfers in, 1%, and then some miscellaneous revenue, 1%. So the total revenue that we get on a yearly basis is around 18 million. But you see here, there's an additional 4 million because of that grant, which puts us to 22 million. I did send a spreadsheet on this. You will be able to click on that table. You will see the detail of what goes to the taxes, and then intergovernmental. You'll see the detail if you click on the chart. Okay. So some revenue trends. So again, for our taxes, currently our property taxes are increasing because our property values have also been steadily increasing. Some municipalities are experiencing decreases in their property values, but for the city, we are sometimes better than inflation. And then intergovernmental. So this is dependent on the consumer spending in the state. And looks like from what I read, the consumer in Michigan are still enthusiastic in spending. So I think the state is also projecting some increase when it comes to our sales tax revenues.
This number could change.
So that number now is coming from the state.
Oh, okay.
And then the grant, that includes the water street cleanup, so we shouldn't be expecting that to be coming in on a yearly basis.
I will add that the initial 4 million or 4+ million came from the state. We will be expecting an additional 3 million from the federal government coming next fiscal year. And that will be in for Water Street cleanup.
Then our charges for services, are we expecting, when did we change our,
The fee structure will be reviewed and it will be on the first agenda of July or the last agenda of June, and those usually take effect at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we will be digging into that probably sometime in May.
then licenses and permits, this includes all the projected, projects, that we have in the city? So this includes some big projects, so we shouldn't also be expecting that our license and permits will be this high?
Yeah, these are inflated due to the to ongoing developments, the one on Clark. And then they are beginning to pull permits for the one at 220 North Park. So that's why this number is inflated at the moment.
Then investment earnings. If we, again, start spending our fund balance, this will also decrease. And then also the feds now, the federal government are slowly decreasing the investment rates. So we should also be expecting some decrease in our yields. Then transfer in, this is the mental health millage. And again, this is dependent on the voters come 2026.
And to add a little bit onto license and permits, that is governed by Bolt. We can only charge the actual costs of the use. So it's any materials needed or staff time. So those permit fees have to be structured in a way that we're not actually getting a profit from them. So they should just cover expenditures.
And we did change our process in accounting for some of our employees, so we could charge them directly and accordingly. So we will see the change in the coming budget years.
Yeah, we put things in a way to make this easily trackable. So if someone was to ask, it would be easily illustrated by how we're distributing the departments now.
The costs for employees include overhead?
Yes. Yep. So all their benefits, you mean, and then, yeah, it's included in the department.
Costs.
Mhm.
Okay. And then some risk factors. So for our property tax, so property tax values have been stable for the city and have been consistently growing. A housing crash similar to 2008 is not expected, but the city should still be ready if just in case it happens again.
And that's a thing that during this budget process, council will need to determine what is a safe level of uncommitted funds. And then we can use some of the fund balance for ongoing projects, but still ensure that we're at we have enough cushion that if there is an issue with the housing market, that we'll be able to sustain it.
So some risk factor with our state revenue sharing. So these are partly from sales tax collected for goods and services sold. Consumer sentiment is higher than previous years and inflation is expected to go down. Revenue sharing is projected to be higher unless there are unforeseen events. For investment earnings, interest yield remains to be higher compared to previous years. Rates has been decreasing slowly due to federal rate cuts. They put in some salaries here. Salaries are higher due to inflation and new collective bargaining agreements. City salaries are now comparable to surrounding municipalities. And
Where Where are we with our CBAs right now? Where are they in the cycles?
The POAM and TPOAM and IAFF were approved last year, but we do have COAM coming up 6 months or so.
For your agreements?
Yes, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that they're all 3-year agreements.
There are, I think, 3, 4, 5,
Is it 3, 4, 5? Okay.
but I don't know which one are 5. I think fire is 5. Oh, no, we just changed 5.
Yeah, they just changed. I can double check real quick. While you find.
Back to something on the, I think it was page 10 on your
Okay.
handout. As we're seeing property values go up and with it, property taxes going up. What are we seeing with regard to delinquencies in property taxes? Does there seem to be a commensurate increase as the rates go up, or?
What I've seen for us is our delinquency is around 4%. So we collect 96% most of the time, and then the county makes us whole for the 4% that or so we're not expecting anything. And I did one of the meetings that I've attended with the other treasurers. They're seeing that there's not much of delinquency from the last.
So going back to the CBAs, COAM, like I said, will expire this year. TPOAM goes to 27. Okay, it goes to 26. IAFF goes to 27, and POAM goes to 25.
Okay. So now we go to our general fund balance. So this is our fund balance as of fiscal year end 2023. So we did have 30,360,000. So out of that, we have different types. So we have some non-spendable fund balances there. On the detail, you'll see prepaid items, 70,000. So these prepaid items are those prepayments that we did during the fiscal year. So what that means is a good example will be for our healthcare. So our healthcare we pay in advance. So let's say for our July bills, we pay them in June. So while it's not yet an expense to the city, we've already paid for them. So we categorize them as prepaid items. We also have some inventory. So these are mostly the supplies at DPS. So these are just unused supplies that we have, which are not easily convertible to cash. So they're considered non-spendable. And we have land for resale, 11,000. And then we also have some committed fund balance here. One is our active employee cumulative benefits. So the city has made a commitment that we will fund all the compensated absences of our employees. So these are their vacation time, sick time, which totals to 1.1 million. We also have energy efficiency conservation project. So this part of our fund balance, we did account for the savings that we had before from converting our street lights from the conventional to the LED.
Yes, so this was a fund created by former council member Murdoch. When we transferred over to LED lights throughout the city, the savings that the city was able to get from that went into a fund specific to environmental projects and things of that nature.
Was that subsequently reduced when didn't DTE try to impose
Yeah, they were trying to.
happened?
Yeah, I don't believe that actually went through. I'd have to double check, but that was like few years ago, and I don't believe anything came from that. I know there was a big pushback from local governments. But I don't recall in at least the near history that that fund has actually been used, Reagan. No.
Then we also did commit for our social equity fund. So this is the $1,000 that we save for every recreational marijuana.
Yeah,
license that we-
every retail permit does 1,000 of that does go into the social equity fund.
No, we have an assigned fund balance. So this is the next year's shortfall. So for our fiscal year 23-24 budget, we were projecting a shortfall of 2.4 million. So under this category, we've put it as assigned. And then the rest is our unassigned balance, which is 8.7 million, which is available for use for the city. Then I did put in some information here with regards to our minimum assigned fund balance. This came from our fund balance policy. And it says here, the city of Ypsilanti will maintain a minimum unassigned fund balance in its general fund of 10% of subsequent years' budgeted expenditures and outgoing transfers. And then we also have a policy with regards to our surplus fund balance. Should unassigned fund balance of general fund ever exceed 15% of the current year budgeted expenses, the city of Ypsilanti may use such fund balance surpluses for debt payment and or one-time expenditure that are non-recurring in nature, which will not require additional future expenses, outlays, or maintenance, additional staffing, or other recurring expenditures.
I asked the projection for the shortfall, so that, is that also something that's been updated, or that was what was built into the current year's budget?
Yep, so that was from last year. We haven't updated this because we have not finished the, but I'm looking at it, it will be less than what we projected. Less shortfalls.
That, how does, well, we'll probably get into this more when we talk about expenditures, but we had a lot of slots, FTEs that are not filled. Is that driving significantly where we end up for the end of this year?
Yeah, that would be, it covers a lot of the shortfall is the unfilled positions. So once those positions are filled, this will affect our general fund. And that's why in new developments and new construction, we have to be aware that we need to sustain our budget, that we need to ensure that that is, that's going to be a revenue generator.
Where did our 10%, where the 10% come from? The idea of minimum unassigned fund balance of 10%. Why not 5%? Why not 15%? Why not 25%? What was the
I'd have to look into the history of that. That was created some time ago, and I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's either, I think it might be in our code of ordinances, but I don't believe so. But it's just an action of council, so I'd have to review to see what the thought process was behind that.
might be something we want to
Mhm.
talk about, revisit, ratify that figure, or think about others. I've seen what represented as best practice to be looking at 3 to 4 months. Sometimes I read 6 months.
Yeah.
Might be a little excessive, but certainly conservative and would prepare us in case of a significant economic downfall.
GFOA is 3 to 6 months, the recommendation, 3 to 6.
And it's also, council might want to revisit the surplus fund balance and And if that makes sense of the 15% of the budgeted expenses.
Yeah,
So,
that language kind of terrifies me.
mhm.
As soon as you see a little bit of extra money, we ought to spend it.
Yeah, right.
And away.
Yeah, no, I definitely would like to have that conversation and perhaps even think about creating a formal rainy day fund.
That would be, would you just want to create an additional fund and that would just flow from 101 into that fund each year?
Yes, it could be something where at the end of the year, once we have final figures, when possible, we put some into it. Or it could be set up in a way that it automatically goes depending on where our end of the year numbers are. It also could be such that drawing upon it requires a special vote or in some cases, even a supermajority. I'm not sure I favor that. But there could be special.
Council has the authority to transfer between funds. So however council would like to do that.
Conversation to have.
I think some other municipalities, what they do too is if they have surplus funds under general fund, they also automatically allocate to their capital improvement. So some of the process that we could think about. Okay, next you will see there the fund balance summary for all our funds. You see our general fund there, that 13.3 million. The major street, we are at 4.3. Local street, 1.7. Public safety, we have 234,000. Garbage and rubbish collection, 82,000. So 248, this is DDA funds. 265, police special revenue, 65,000. Depot Town Development, again, this is DDA. Then 304, that fund, 3,740. 342, 4,300. 413, Downtown Authority, again, DDA, 334,000. Our capital improvement fund has 1.2 million. Our EDC, 33,000. 482, 824,000. 483, revenue refunding budget, 1.6 million. So 482 and 483, these are not actual funds of the city. These are more like deposits of YCOA. Just in case they're not able to provide payments, we temporarily use these funds to pay those debts.
Serve as a fiscal agent in effect. Do we have any authority over if they say to spend from those funds? Do we have authority to veto that, or do we have to ratify that, or does it just automatically happen?
Right now it automatically, I think there is an agreement with them that we can keep up to a certain amount of money of depending on how much they would they would need to pay. I would have to go back and see the because this was before me, but the current finance director there was involved with the setting up that account.
Happen to see investment earnings from those.
We give it to them.
Fair, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't charge any admin fee.
Oh, no. You're hurting me.
Then sidewalk improvement, we have 231,000. Parking fund, we have 59,000. Public transit, 18,000. And then our motor pool has 1.8 million. Workers' compensation fund, this is the one I was talking about. We're running, this will run out in 2 years and will need to be subsidized by general fund. And then fire and police pension, we have 25 million. And then retiree benefits, 9.8 million. 732 and 736 funds, we're fiduciary and we are unable to touch any of these funds. Now we go to our outstanding debt. So the city has two types of bond obligations. So we have our general bond obligations and we have our revenue bonds. So revenue bonds are obligations that are paid for through the YCA water and sewer rates. And then our general bonds are paid through full faith and credit of the city. So that's the 304 on here. So if you see here, 304 are divided in two parts, 2016A refunding bonds and 2016B. So 2016A, that is funded through the tax millage. And as of for fiscal year 24-25, we have beginning balance of 4.4 million. After paying principal, that will be down to 3.9 million. And then our 2016B has 1.1 million. And after payments, that will be down to 985,000.
What kind of interest rates are we paying on those?
That I did check this one and it's around 3 to 4%.
And can we issue those bonds through a vote of council? Or does it require a vote of the people?
You can issue the bonds through a vote of council.
EO bonds.
I think what we have to vote, what we have to request vote for are the taxes, millage rates. So if we wanted to fund any of this to be paid for, then that's the time we now go to our residents.
Yeah, it'd be a debt millage similar to the Water Street one.
Then you see the different revenue bonds from YCUA. So what we do here is we pay them and then eventually we collect it from YCUA. They pay principal and interest. And we have here the installment obligation bit more agreement. This was way before me. I think this has something to do with the Water Street project. I think once that property is sold, then we have some liability to take care of. So we just put it in our books. Are you familiar with the bit more? I could dig this up some more if ever.
Yeah.
Legal settlement. Are we still obligated to pay this or? Yeah, yep. Yep, it's in our books, but I'm not sure if we are still obligated to pay because I think it's way past now I think it's also there's also a prescription period. 340,000. But
Yeah,
we
so
just
this-
keep it in there.
This was the infrastructure for the Biltmore when they're talking about doing that. Okay. Yeah.
Then you'll see here on the next pages, the debt payment schedule for for the different debts. We usually pay our debts on September, October, November, then March, April, May.
I should note that if we were to consider putting together or putting a rainy day fund in place over time, that has the potential to lower our interest rates on GO debt if our bond rating goes up. I would think the Moody's and Standard & Poor's would smile or look favorably upon a rainy day fund.
Just going to let this committee know, we do have a hard stop at 6:30. There is another meeting in here. So I don't know if we want to do questions now and then we could finish up revenues at our next meeting, or if we just want to move through the rest of this. If no one has questions.
Ask some questions throughout.
Okay. Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, I think this should be quick now. So the legal debt margin here, what you see here is the calculation of how much our legal debt margin here is. The first calculation there is coming from our audit. the one that ends up with 54 million legal debt margin. So what it's saying is the city may borrow up to $54 million. But this is just considering our GO bonds. I did talk to our bond counsel, and they're saying that the better way to calculate this is to consider all our direct and indirect debt. So we have to consider the debts of the different jurisdictions that involves the city as well. And so when we did that calculation, our debt limit becomes 29 million. So the way this is calculated is you get your state equalized value, which is for the 608 million. You multiply that by 10%, that gets you to 60 million. And then you deduct all the direct debts that the city is like a stakeholder in. That puts us to 29 million. So if we were to follow this debt limit, the city could borrow up to $29 million.
Followed you until you said the
Yeah.
29 million.
Oh, on the next page.
Oh.
On the next page. Yep, that first calculation only considers the general obligation bonds. This one considers a higher debt. Yes. And then what they've said too is we have two debt limits. One is the general obligation, and then if it's a capital improvement bond, it's not subject to the 10%, but it will just be subject to 5%. So now, instead of us being able to borrow 29 million, if it's a capital improvement bond, we can now borrow up to 24 million. But then again, when we borrow, these are just saying that how much we can borrow. It doesn't let us know our capacity to pay. Yeah. So if we could really afford the $24 million. And then bond rating. You look on the last page or second to the last page, our bond rating for our general obligation debt for 2023 is A1. And per Moody's, that is an upper medium grade. So it's like the third level, the best, third from the best level. And if you are AA, A1, obligations rated A are considered upper medium grade and are subject to low credit risk. And just for context, state of Michigan is AA plus or AA1. So they're on the higher quality. And then city of Detroit is BB plus, which is the investment grade, somewhere on the one grade lower.
How do you increase your bond rating? Is it just like individual tax? Like, I mean, individual credit scores in a sense?
They have a criteria that they use. They look into your general fund, how you budget, your outlook. I think council member, you familiar with this too?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the concept is similar to an individual credit score. It definitely looks into into the future for where you stand now, but where
What you
you're
could
likely to stand and your history of responsible budgeting.
Yep. So ever since our rating has been improving as well, so which is good news. And then I did put in some on the last page, some terms that we may be encountering a lot. So like proposal A, uncapping, constitutional revenue sharing, and CVTRS, public safety. So our revenue sharing now, there's an additional funding that the state is providing us, which is the public safety. Since we are providing our own public safety, we'll have an increase in our revenue sharing. And then I did put in some of the explanation there of non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balance.
Big picture questions, and I suppose we'll see this in a couple of weeks when we see the
Mhm.
the budget rolled out, but right now, do you have a sense for how much we might have to dip into the fund balance for this coming year?
I know that it's gonna be less than the 2.4 million. But uh, I'll probably have, because we just did put in some of our capital expenditures. That will give me a better picture of where we're gonna end up.
Any final questions before we go to public comment? Thank you, Ms. Reagan and Andrew.
Thank you.
I don't know if I've ever looked at it this way before, so.
Also, if you have any recommendations, please let us know on how we could improve on this document. Council member did put in all the information that we need, but if you have additional or things you wanted to,
No, I
Thanks, Councilman
appreciate
McLean.
it.
You did a great job too. Thank you. All right, well, this is our second opportunity for public comments. Is there anyone in the audience? Bonnie, Steve? Or anyone online?
2.4.
No one's online.
Nobody's online, so.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Ow.
The 2.4 would be the structural deficit, right?
no. So when we say structural deficit, it's the 2.4 is the total deficit that we have for on the last budget year. But for our structural deficit, we need to compare our recurring revenues versus our recurring expenditures. I did have a spreadsheet before. So I can remember what our actual structural deficit is. Because on that 2.4, there are one-time expenditures that is included. So I think if maybe we're around 1 million short all the time. If we are fully staffed, we are 1 million short we have a 1 million shortfall because we don't have enough recurring revenue to cover all our salaries, operating expenses.
It's based up more off the operations and less on the capital. So that's again why it's important that we find ways to increase our revenue streams, either through new development on Water Street or a real deep dive into our permit structures, or, you know, the state could finally make good on its governmental transfers that it's promised.
There you go.
The fee structures. Your own charge.
Well, no, that depends. There is a permit fee has to cover the use, but then there's also fines, which we would include in the fee structure, and things to that nature. But yes, like fees would have to cover, just cover usage and staff time. And we've really underfunded or we lowballed our fees in quite a few ways for a long time. So we started looking at those a little bit more in depth with the past fee schedule, and really did a tune up on our special events, which brought that up to where it needs to be. But there's other things that we need to look into in order to really cover our costs.
Well, I'll close public comment because there really isn't any. And the meeting is adjourned.